Welcome to Allies or Enemies. I'm Jess.
And I am Shawn, and today we are continuing to count down our top 100, and we are into the 20s, so let's go.
My number 30 is Isle of Cats, and specifically the Explore and Draw. I like the original, but the Explore and Draw is a flip and write version, and they did such a great job of turning the big game into a flip and write. It's really simple. You choose which cats you want to draw by just like picking a column, and then you draw them. And when we play, you have to draw the cats. And I think that is a huge part of the charm, is we suck at drawing.
Oh, our cats are terrible. Yeah, in the book you're just supposed to draw lines, but that's no fun. So we draw the world's worst cats.
And so we end up with a boat filled of crazy looking cats, and it is my number 30.
My number 30 is Dwellings of Eldervale, and this is a game Jess had to convince me on, because I'm not usually into kind of high fantasy themes, and I'm not usually into dice rolling, and I'm not usually into most of the bits of this game. But it turns out I really like this game because secretly, maybe not even that secretly, it's really a Euro game. And it's a Euro game with some really cool intertwining mechanics. So you've got this area control-ish bit, but really that's kind of your worker placement, resource management, dressed up like area control. And there is a fighting bit, but it's like the simplest battle ever. It's just whoever rolled the highest dice. You got more dice in the fight, so you got more chances, but even if you got one dice, you roll a higher dice, you win the battle. And I actually really surprisingly like that. But the bit I like most about this game is that you're also, while you're putting out your workers and you're doing all that stuff, you're also building this little tableau of cards. And those cards are like a secondary worker placement. So this is, of any game I've ever played, this is the game where resting is like the most exciting. Because when you rest, you bring all of your people back and you put them on that tableau of cards that you have collected, and you do a whole bunch of worker placement actions all at once. And it's so rewarding to do that, and I love that you're building kind of these two engines at once, and there are a whole bunch of asymmetric factions, which we always love, so it is my number 30.
My number 29 is Marvel Champions, which is a cooperative card game. And it is very much like a team game. You are each characters of the Marvel Universe. I really like the X-Men in particular.
Oh, we all do.
And then you are fighting against bad guys. But you really have to help each other out, because I might need to fight people that are like assigned to you to make sure that you don't get hurt. Or we have to like plan ahead to see like, oh, if you can get rid of some of the threat that's here, I can do a lot of the punching. So you have to play to each other's weaknesses and help each other out. And there have been a few times when I haven't quite made it to the end, but I feel like anytime I die like that, I've gone out in like a big big ball of fire. Yes, I have. I really like got them down to the last final points, just ready for you to take down. And I think it does a cooperative card game so well, and Marvel Champions is my number 29.
My number 29 is Tapestry. And Dwellings of Eldervale, I was just talking about there being a lot of asymmetry. Well, hold on to your hats, because Tapestry has got, I don't even know how many
Well,
now.
we have like all of the expansions, which helps, because they all add more asymmetric factions.
But what Tapestry is it is a really abstracted civilization game. So you're moving up these 4 different tracks, well, 5 different tracks with one of the expansions. And as you move up those, you're just kind of getting different stuff. So these tracks are like exploration, science, the new one is arts. And as you move up those, you're going to get a bunch of different resources that you're going to spend on stuff, basically to stretch out your turn. And you're going to get these buildings that you're going to put on a little map. So you're building a city while you're moving up the tracks. And I really like that. I really like that this is kind of half a polyomino game and half, I don't even know, like a track bumping game, really, with like a little bit of area control in the middle too. And the tapestries, there's so many like little cogs going into what is really a fairly simple machine, and that asymmetry is just, it's phenomenal. And that is my 29.
My number 28 is Draftosaurus, which is a game all about just taking like handfuls of dinosaurs and placing them on a board. And so you have to just put these wonderful little wooden dinosaur meeples out on your board, and there'll be different areas that score differently. And that is it. It probably like looks like a kid's game, but it is so much fun to have your palm full of dinosaur meeples, deciding what you want to take and what you're going to be passing onward, which is particularly interesting for the 2-player game, because at 2 players, you place one and you get rid of one. So you are specifically looking across the table to see what your opponent wants and hoping that you can make sure that they don't get it. And it is my number 28.
My number 28 is Orleans. And Orleans is a bag builder, which is something I really like, but I haven't seen a lot. And before Orleans, I'd only really played Quacks. And Quacks is a pretty light bag building game. It's terrific, but it's pretty light. Whereas Orleans takes that and makes it into a fairly heavy Euro game. And so in Orleans, you've got a bag of dudes, and they're stuff like, they're different villagers. There's like a logger and
a boat person.
A boat person, an old man. Those are their official names. And you're taking them out of the bag and you're putting them into jobs around your village. And a lot of those jobs are getting you other dudes, and those dudes also move you up these different tracks. But they're also doing stuff like they're moving you around a town, you're able to build cities, and you're also able to put them into this center area where they're gonna score points, and you wanna get the last one in that area too, so that you can get these special kind of points multipliers. And it's a fairly simple game on the surface, but it's a really clever game. And there is a surprising amount of interaction, and this is just a game that has been played even more as we've got the Invasion expansion, which is the only expansion to get. Do not get the other expansion. But with the Invasion expansion, so good. And this is my number 28.
My number 27 is Hadrian's Wall, which is a flip and write game, but it's not your standard flip and write game. Typically, you think of flip and write as being a little bit more accessible or a bit lighter game. Hadrian's Wall is a brain burner. They are using like the flip and write just to be able, like almost like a spreadsheet, to be able to keep track of everything that you're doing.
But a really fun spreadsheet.
A really fun spreadsheet. It's such a fun puzzle to figure out like all the different people that you have and your different resources and the different tracks and areas that you're going up to try and stretch out your turn and to maximize what you're doing, because it's usually better to like specialize in a few different areas instead of trying a mix of everything. And I have played this a ton, and I still feel like, well, I really should try Gladiators more. Like there's still some that I haven't tried as much as I should. And the whole time we're playing, we are just like heads down, exchanging things, marking things off, but fully engaged, and it is my number 27.
My number 27 is Marvel Champions, and you had this one on your list earlier, and I agree with everything that you say. This works so well as a co-op deck constructor, but this also works really well as a solo game, and this is one of my most played solo games. And generally I'll just play it with one against the bad guy, which is really, really hard, and I almost never win, but I really like how much they've captured each of the different characters. So if you're Colossus, it feels like you're Colossus. It feels like you've got super defense. If you're Shadowcat, it feels like you're, a little bit trickier and you're dealing with a threat a bit more, but it's a little harder for you to take on the bad guy. If you're Wolverine, you're kind of doing everything and healing yourself. And I really like that. I really like just messing with all the different characters, especially the X-Men, and playing against those bad guys. And the little kind of mini campaigns are very hard, but very good as well. And so that is my 27.
My number 26 is Great Western Trail, and I'm going to specifically pick the New Zealand version because
it's the correct version.
I think it's the best one. And so in Great Western Trail, you are going around, in this case, New Zealand, and you are collecting different sheep. This particular edition also lets you shear those sheep. And one of the great things about Great Western Trail, like as a whole, is you tend to be pushed along different strategies depending on what workers you're getting. So you might be trying to get a lot of cowboys, or in this case, shepherds, I guess.
Sheep boys, I think.
Or you might be getting a whole bunch of builders and putting a bunch of buildings out. And so I love that every game you play, you can try a different strategy. And I think they're all winning strategies. They'll just all play so differently, and you'll be like going around the track at different paces depending on like what actions you're trying to do as well. And we lived in New Zealand, and I think that's also why this has a special place in my heart. And it is my number 26.
My number 26 is Architects of the West Kingdom. So from a game set in New Zealand to a game made by a New Zealander. And Architects of the West Kingdom is, well, you talked about this one in the last list, and really the best part of this game is capturing people and putting them in jail. That's what this game is about. You're putting out workers. Every time you put out more workers on a space, you get more stuff from that space. But as you get more and more people on a space, it makes it more and more tempting for other players to go and capture you and take you to jail, because they're going to get stuff for dropping you off in jail. And you're not going to get stuff because you've suddenly got captured. You have to go do a jailbreak. And this game at first wasn't my favorite in the West Kingdom series. This was like way down the ladder, but as we played it more and more, and as I kind of saw the different strategies, and as we added a couple of the expansions, this has just moved up and up and up to the point now where it's my favorite of all of the Shem Phillips S.J. McDonald games. And it works well at a wider amount of player counts, I think, than most of the Shem Phillips games, and it is my 26.
My number 25 is Sea Salt and Paper, and we love small box card games, and as soon as we got this, it hasn't left our backpack. We carry it around everywhere.
That is a literal fact. That is not hyperbole. It has not left our backpack.
Because it's just such a quick, fun game. It works really well at 2 players. It works really well at more players as well. It looks lovely. I love the origami art. And it's a really clever set collections point scoring card game that you are trying to determine how much better you're doing than your opponents for how you end a round. There's kind of a push your luck gambling element. You can choose to just end the round and everybody scores the points they have. Or if you think you've got more points than everybody else, because you don't know everyone's points, you can call last chance, and that gives everybody the rest of the round to try and beat your points. If they can't beat it, you end up with more. So there's kind of a meta game to it as you play this game more and more, and it's my number 25.
My number 25 is Final Girl. And this is one that is not going to be on Jess's list because she's helped me roll dice once, I think, whereas I play this all the time. This is my most played solo game, and it's not even close. And it is a bit surprising that I like this game because this is really a dice chucker. That's like what this is. And Jess will hear me from the other room too, cursing at this game because I cannot get my rules to work. And she's like, do you even like this? But I do, I love it. And mostly it's because of the theme. Because this is such a slasher movie game, and I grew up on slasher movies, especially 80s slasher movies, and I have such a place in my heart for them. Basically, all of these boxes are just slightly dressed up famous 80s movies. So there's one that's pretty much Aliens, there's one that's Nightmare on Elm Street, there's one that's Friday the 13th, but there's kind of most of the things that you'd be looking for. There's still no Halloween. I would really like to see a Halloween, but I can kind of reenact those movies, and some of these are some of the best versions of those movies. Like the Aliens one, that's my favorite Aliens board game that exists. I think obviously the same for Nightmare on Elm Street because I don't think there is another Nightmare on Elm Street board game, but this is, if you love slasher movies, this is so worth playing, and if you like solo games, this is so worth playing, even though you will yell at the dice from time to time, and it is my 25.
My number 24 is Ultimate Railroads, and this is a super abstracted train game because it really doesn't have to be about trains, but what you are doing is you are building train tracks, and on your board, there'll be 3 different tracks that you're building. And depending on which ones you're building will lead to the different engine and different combos that you're creating. And it's really satisfying because your first round, you'll get like a couple of points. And then by like your final round, you're scoring like 100 plus points. And so you're really hoping to get that engine going in earlier like rounds. And you can build that engine in any way. So it's just a satisfying puzzle to try and figure it out. And in the ultimate version, it comes with 4 different boards, which all play so differently and is just whole other different kinds of puzzles to figure out. And it is my number 24.
My number 24 is Carcassonne, and Carcassonne is one of the core games that really got me into the hobby. And it's just continued to be a game that I love, and we've got 10 different expansions for it now that we mix and match in with that, and just so much stuff. And I just have so much fun playing my little short wooden representations of people out all around this giant map, just putting my little wood pulls onto castles, putting the me woods, laying them down into the forest. You know, I wish there was a word to use for them, but just playing with them all around, and really those expansions, just how much they change up the game to each different game. But whichever ones you kind of mix and match in there, even just the base game, I think is so terrific and really stands the test of time. And it is my 24.
My number 23 is Wingspan, which is a game all about birds. And I have a zoology background, so I think I'm a little bit more drawn to the theme than Shawn is.
I really like getting the Oriole, and that's about the only one I
Shawn
care about.
always goes for collecting any birds that have to do with baseball teams, and I go for collecting birds that will give me the most points. As a result, I think I've won this a little bit more often.
I think you've won this 90% of the time. This is a landslide.
Yeah, and that's maybe also why I like it. But I think the art is beautiful. I love the action selection, the tableau building of the cards, choosing the different strategies of egg laying or being able to play like a lot of predator cards. And I think the expansions, in particular Oceania, where it adds the nectar and then tweaks the boards a little bit, I think that is the best version of Wingspan. And it is one that I would happily introduce to people and play with people, partly because I think I've beaten Shawn too many times for him to play with me.
Way too many.
And it is my number 23.
My number 23 is Scout. And earlier you talked about Sea Salt and Paper, which always lives in our backpack, but Scout lives there right next to it. And Scout it's a card shedding game. And you've got a bunch of cards, they've got numbers on them, and you choose which way you're gonna hold them, and then you gotta hold them and you gotta keep them there, which kills board gamers because you really want to move those around. But how you move them around is to play them out of your hand. So each time you play cards out of your hand, you're kind of playing it so that you can remove cards but set up new sets in your hand, which is really cool. And at first, I think people don't really see that part of it. They just see it as like, I just got to get rid of these cards, and then like more immediately they're thinking about it. But as you play this game more and more, you start to kind of see that like a few steps ahead and like look at that at the beginning of your turn and be like, oh, I think in 3 turns I can make like a 5 or a 6 combo of these cards. And it's so satisfying when you can just drop down all the rest of your cards and everyone else gets negative points, because this is a game where you can really have a tough round and score actual negative points. They've got a plus and a minus side and equal sides of both as well, which is very telling for how this can go sometimes. And everyone we play this with loves it. And I've played this so much and I love it every single time. And it is my 23.
My number 22 is Pandemic Legacy, and we've played through all 3 legacies and enjoyed them all, particularly Season 0 I really liked. But I am going to go with the original one, and that's because it was the first legacy game we had played through. Prior to that, I couldn't really justify the cost of a legacy game because it seemed like, what, you only get to play it once and then that's it.
What fools we were thinking, oh, all we're going to get is 15 plays out of this board game.
Yeah, and that is a lot of plays, and it makes each occasion feel so special. So after having such a great experience with the first season, we then sought out other legacy games, and it's always been enjoyable. It's just so fun to have an ever-shifting game board change and introducing new mechanics and new things that make each play slightly different.
And it's kind of nice to like finish it. Like it feels like I've completed this board game. And most board, like we're never gonna complete Carcassonne. There's no possible way to complete it.
That is true. And it's funny with this one in particular because you get more gameplays the more you lose. So we were kind of like, oh, we lost, but that means we get another game out of it. And it is my number 22.
My number 22 is Parade. And Parade's a game I think is a little bit hard to find, which is too bad because this is just a tremendous game that really deserves another printing. Because Parade it's kind of lightly Alice in Wonderland themed. So you got all these Alice in Wonderland-y cards and you're putting them in a row. Every time you put down a card, you don't have to even worry about any of the cards that are that number far away. So let's say you put down a 6, you ignore the first 6 cards, then you look at the 7th and beyond, and any of those that are lower, you gotta take, or any of those that match the same color. And so you end up kind of building this big row, like this longer and longer parade until someone has to take cards, and then it just goes crazy. But as you start to take those cards, you really wanna take a lot of the same kind. Because whatever you've got the most of, or whatever you've got more than anyone else of, you only score 1 each. Whatever you don't, you score the full amount. So this is a game where you're really trying to score low points, and it's a game where you can really kind of mess with other people too, because if I see that Jess has got like the 9 and 10 of something, I'm really gonna try and make it so she can't get any more of those cards. I'm gonna try and corner the market on those cards to make sure she's scoring that. So this is one of those games that's interactive, but like a step removed, which is really how I like my interactivity. It's like a little bit passive aggressive. It's very Canadian. And this is my 22.
My number 21 is Trails of Tucana, and I guess this is my flip and right section because this is my third one on the list. And spoiler alert, this is one of my favorites. It's not my favorite. I realized it wasn't.
That's a terrible alert. Everyone can just ignore that alert.
And what I really like about Trails of Tucana is it seems so simple. You flip 2 terrains and then you get to draw a line anywhere you want on your map that has those terrains from center to center. And you're trying to connect the different cities as well as connecting like the different icons on the map. But there's something so satisfying about trying to build your route most efficiently, and I love the bingo element. You're really hoping that your terrains come up. I'm always the person that flips the cards, and so people are always like, oh, come on, please, please flip mountain and sand. I'm like, oh, mountain? And then, oh, sorry, water. And there is something, I don't know what makes us so invested in this game to the card flips, more so than almost any other game.
I think partly we've got little songs that we sing too for some of them.
That's true. I think that does add to it. So Trails of Tucana is my number 21.
My number 21 is Hadrian's Wall. And this is I think this is the section that we've had the most in common in so far. But Hadrian's Wall is my favorite roll and write. It's tremendous. I forget that it is a flip and write game because it is so heavy. And like you said, it really is. It's just using that flip and write mechanism to be able to have a bigger board and do more stuff than you could do without that. And there's sections of that board you're just not even gonna use. Like, I think I've done the merchant part like once or twice in like 20-ish games that I've played of this. But it's such a tough puzzle because you have so few things at the start of each round and you manage to stretch those so far. I'm blown away each time, and it's really just resource conversion. And we're both playing and I'm like, oh, I'm still going. Is Jess still going? And I look up and yeah, sure, she is. It's like we just are doing our thing, looking up. Are you still? Okay, great. We're still playing. We're still having fun. And it really is multiplayer solitaire. That is not a knock. It's tremendous multiplayer solitaire, and it is my 21. And that is it. That is the 20s. Next time we'll start on number 20 and we will count down the teens. And remember, spoiler alert, Jess has still got one more flipping right in there somewhere.
Thank you so much for watching. Please let us know in the comments if you played any of the games we talked about. And as usual, please like, subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you next time for another game.